بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Today we begin the 10th Naqd, the 10th nullifier of al-Islam. And so Shaykh Muhammad bin Abd rahimahullah, he said, al-Naqid al-Ashir, the 10th nullifier, al-i'radu an dinillahi ta'ala, لا يتعلمه ولا يعمل به. والدليل قوله تعالى ومن أظلم ممن ذكر بآيات ربه ثم أعرض عنها إنا من المجرمين منتقمون. Rough translation of which is to turn away from the deen of Allah, to turn away al-i'rad an deen Allah ta'ala, from the deen of Allah the Most High, not learning it, لا يتعلمه ولا يعمل به. So he does not learn it, nor does he act upon it. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, the evidence is the statement of the Most High. Who is more unjust? وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِّرَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ. Who is more unjust than the one who is reminded of the signs of his Lord, ثُمَّ أَعْرَضَ عَنْهَا, and then he turned away from them. إِنَّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ مُنْتَقِمُونَ. Indeed, we shall exact vengeance from the criminals. And that verse is Surah Al-Sajdah, 32nd Surah, verse number 22. So Shaykh Muhammad bin Abd rahimahullah, he begins by first of all saying, he speaks in a general sense, and he makes an observation, and he says, to turn away from the religion, kulliyan, altogether, completely, such that we do not raise generations who come afterwards as Muslims, and that we do not establish Islamic schools to teach the religion, to learn the religion. Rather, all that we do is just establish schools, for example, to learn language, to learn the languages, the Arabic language, or to learn worldly sciences, worldly types of knowledge, or to learn foreign languages, right? So schools are set up only to learn English, French, to learn the Arabic language itself, just the language, or to learn engineering, or to learn any other type of worldly science. So to turn away from the religion completely and to focus just upon this, and to make all effort, and to make all of one's efforts just to focus upon this, foreign languages, sciences, and Arabic language, stripped of the religion, then the Shaykh says, all of this, it's something that has happened in our time. So he says, therefore, it is wajib, first of all, that we are Muslims, who learn what has come from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is the first thing that we have to do. He says, those people who come and they're not bothered at all to learn what has come from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor do they teach it, so they don't learn it, nor do they teach it, nor do they call people to learn it and to teach it. Rather, the only thing they are concerned with is to learn foreign languages, teach English, or to learn some of the practical sciences, as they call them, practical, sciences. He says these types of people, فَهَؤُلَاءِ أَعْرَضُوا عَنِ الْإِسْلَامِ كُلِّيًّا. It's as if these people have turned away from Islam completely. And he says, وَاقْتَفُوا مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ بِمَا يُسَمَّى الْإِسْلَامِ الرَّسْمِ. And so they've just happy and suffused with Islam that is just cultural. It's just symbols and cultural, and that's it, and they're happy with that. He says, as for Islam, that is the true Islam, it is that a Muslim learns what has come from the Prophet ﷺ, especially that knowledge which is fardul ayn, especially the knowledge which is an individual obligation upon him. Then the Shaykh goes on to mention the part of the Naqd. He says, what dalil, the evidence, what is the evidence? He brings the verse in the Quran that we mentioned from Surah Al-Sajda, وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِرَ بِآيَةِ رَبِّهِ, al-ayah, to the end of the ayah. He says, this means a man, he turns away from the deen of Allah, he does not learn it, he does not act upon it, and when you call him, when you invite him and say, come, learn the ilm al-shar'i, come and learn the ilm al-shar'i. He says, his response, أنا Muslim, alastu bi kafir. He says, look, I'm a Muslim, I'm not a kafir. And then he brings all these doubts, shubuhat. And, you know, they bring these arguments, and some of them they say, well, what we are doing is we are looking at rational evidences. Right, so the Shaykh is really speaking about people like the Ash'aris and Maturidis, people like that. Right, so what they do is they will study the sciences of the disbelievers, they will study, you know, cosmology, they will study whatever else, and they will say, look, we're just trying to find rational evidences, al-adillah al-aqliyah, rational evidences, to prove our belief. To prove our belief. So they will focus a lot of time upon the sciences and learn them and, you know, try to bring proofs for them. But as for the Quran itself, then they don't believe that the Quran has any rational evidences. Or if they do, they believe that we can't really use them, because you can't prove the Quran with the Quran to non-Muslims. That's what they claim. That's one of the, you know, ideas that they have. So the Shaykh is really bringing some shubuhat that people bring, and he says, he continues to explain that these people say, look, we don't reject the Quran, but we just believe that the evidences in the Quran are dhanniyah, that they are speculative. They are not like certain and definitive. They're not yaqini. They don't bring absolute conviction. They are speculative. They are open to interpretation. Right? They can be interpreted many different ways. So it's not definitive. It's not qat'i. It's not yaqini. So they bring these excuses, and they say, so what we are doing is we are trying to find evidences, al-adillah, al-aqliyah, al-yaqiniyah. Those evidences which are rational and which have conviction and are certain and are definitive. So the Shaykh says this is an example. He's indicating the fact that this is a type of manifestation of turning away from the religion. Al-i'rad an dinillahi ta'ala. This is al-i'rad anil Quran, turning away from the Quran. So the Shaykh says that to learn knowledge, there is from that knowledge which is fardu aynin, a person must have knowledge. Ignorance is not an excuse. So for example, learning the aqidah as-sahiha, the aqidah which is authentic, وَمَا يُضَادُهَا, and that which contradicts it and what nullifies it, to learn all of those affairs. وَأَرْكَانُ الْإِسْلَامِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَأَرْكَانِهَا وَوَاجِبَاتِهَا, and likewise learn the pillars of Islam, and likewise to learn the salah, its pillars, its obligations. Right? No Muslim can know his religion except by having this knowledge of the correct aqidah, of the knowing the pillars, the arkan of the prayer, its rulings, and so on and so forth, purification. All of these things, every single Muslim is obligated to acquire this knowledge, to turn to the deen, to acquire this ilm. And as for those people who say, look, we are already Muslim, and we don't need to learn aqidah and the pillars, we already know them. The Shaykh says this is incorrect. Why? Because in every age, in every era, there are shubuhat which come to a person's belief. There are shubuhat which are always spread. Like in our time, there are shubuhat. There is shubuhat about the Aqidah Salafiyah. People spread doubts about the Salafi Aqidah. They say it brings terrorism. Other people say that it is tajseem and tashbih, like the Ash'aris and Maturidis. Other people, like the Khawarij, they say, well, this is worship of the rulers, right? This Aqidah Salafiyah is worship of the rulers. You worship the rulers, you turn them into Nawaqid and things like this. And then you have other people. So all of these shubuhat are always present, whether from the Mubtadi'ah or whether it is from the Ahlul Kufr wal Ilhad, from the atheists and other than them, Yahud, Nasara. All the shubuhat are always present. So a person is always in need of learning the foundations of his Aqidah. And likewise, in terms of the ahkam, sometimes people do not know many things, and they fall short in some of the obligations. In the basic obligations like purification, the purification for women as it relates to menses and things like that, and so on and so forth. So the Shaykh says, from it is that which is fardu ayn, and from it is that which is fardu kifaya, that which is a collective obligation. If some people do it, it is removed from everybody else. So the Shaykh says, this type of knowledge is only for those people who have the qudra, have the ability, and if they do it, then the obligation is removed from everybody else. He says, for example, the fiqh of the mu'amalat, al-hudud, al-ankiha, things to do with like marriage, things to do with the prescribed punishments, things to do with the dealings, trades, transactions, things like this. All of this is from the fard kifaya. Not every person has to have this knowledge. This knowledge is only necessary at certain times. Want to know the rulings of nikah? Well, you only get married once or maybe twice, whatever else. It doesn't happen every day. So you go and ask the people of knowledge. You learn at the time that you need them. Likewise, transactions, when you engage in a transaction, or likewise. So this is as and when you need that knowledge. So some people have to have that knowledge from the ummah. But as for those which you need every single day, at-tahara, as-salah, and which is routine, al-jum'ah, and as-siyam, and umrah, and things like this, it is an individual obligation to know that, to have that knowledge. Then the Shaykh says, وَلَا يَعْمَلُ بِهِ. So he says, لَا يَتَعَلَّمُهُ وَلَا يَعْمَلُ بِهِ. So he said, the Shaykh here mentioned al-ilm before amal. So he said first, لَا يَتَعَلَّمُهُ. He does not learn it, وَلَا يَعْمَلُ بِهِ. So even if he was to learn the knowledge, even if he did learn the knowledge, it would be of no benefit to him without him acting upon it. And that's why the Shaykh distinguished between these two. And this is indicated in the ayah, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. In this ayah we see Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, have knowledge that there is none which has a right to be worshipped except Allah. And then he commanded with action, وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ, and then seek forgiveness for your sin. Al-ilm qabla al-qawli wal-amal. So knowledge is before speech and action. And likewise the Shaykh mentions that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, he gave a chapter heading with the same title, Al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal. And this means that knowledge has to come first and action comes afterwards. So the Shaykh says after this that the Shaykh brought the ayah in Surah As-Sajdah, وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِّرَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ ثُمَّ أَعْرَضَ عَنْهَا إِنَّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ مُنْتَقِمُونَ. The Shaykh says this means that there is no person who is greater in dhulm than the one whom you remind him with the verse, with the signs of his Lord. You explain to him the dalil, the evidence, meaning for tawheed and things like this, and then he turns away. He just turns away, he's not interested. Whether it is because some people, they disbelieve because of they have this tribalism, right? They want to follow the ways of their forefathers. This is tribalism for their forefathers, grandfathers. and what they were upon. Or it could be some people, they just hate the religion. They hate religion. They're not interested. Right? So they turn away. They believe that it is not suitable for this time. Right? They believe it is backward and things like this. And you see many people who are present today, and this is what they believe. They believe that the deen, it is nothing but, harshness, severity. It's not really suitable to the times, and so on and so forth. So whatever the reason, there could be many different reasons why a person is not interested. A person could be just about making money, trade, business. A person could be about just following lusts and desires, pleasures, right? And he can't let go of that, right? So that's the reason he's not interested. So whether it's shahwa, shubha, whether it's kibr, arrogance, whether it's hatred, all of these are different reasons why a person turns away and is not interested in the deen. So the Shaykh says, Allah Azza wa Jal has asked us to seek refuge from these types of qualities, from this quality of people who know and then they don't act. Right? So the proof is brought to them and they turn away and they do not act. This sifa, this quality is from the qualities of the Yahud and the Nasara. Right? And something that Shaykh says, we mention at the beginning in Surah Al-Fatiha every day, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Those who are favored are those who combine ilm and amal. Ilm and amal. And those upon whom is Allah's anger are those who have ilm and they do not have amal. And this quality is found, it was found and it is found in the Yahud. Right? And those who do not have ilm and then they make amal. They act without ilm. This is acting upon jahl. And this is the sifat, this is a sifa of the Nasara, the Christians. Even though it's the predominant quality, even though the other party has the other quality as well. So amongst the Yahud are those who act without knowledge. And amongst the Nasara are those who have knowledge and they do not abide by it. Right? So, but the overwhelming quality for the Nasara is acting upon ignorance, and for the Yahud it is having knowledge and not acting. And so the Shaykh says that this applies to everyone who is described with these characteristics. Even a Muslim can have these qualities. He can have Allah's anger upon him and he can be misguided and astray when he shares their qualities. So this is the kalam of Shaykh Muhammad Aman rahimahullah ta'ala. And next we move on to the speech of Shaykh Ubaid al-Jabari hafidhahullah ta'ala. And so the Shaykh begins after mentioning the Naqd. He says, al-i'rad عن الشيء والتولي عنه بمعنى واحد. So he says al-i'rad, this word that was used by Shaykh al-Islam, al-i'rad, it has the same meaning as at-tawalli. At-tawalli. At-tawalli is to basically turn your back. Turn your back and to leave something. And al-i'rad is to turn around, turn away from something. So they have the same meaning. كلمتان متفقتان معنى متفقان معنى متفقتان معنى. So he says these words, these two words, they are two words, but they are agreed in meaning, even if the wording is different. The Shaykh then goes on to explain that the deen of Islam is the deenul haqq. It is the true deen which the prophets and messengers came with from the time of Nuh alayhi salam to Muhammad sallallahu, who is the seal of the messengers. And every single prophet and messenger was not sent except with this deen of Islam. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونَ. We never sent any messenger before you except that we revealed to him that there is none which has the right to be worshipped except me, so worship me alone. Al-Anbiya 21:25. And also the famous ayah the Shaykh brings in Surah Al-Nahl 16 verse 36, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. And we indeed sent in every nation a messenger with this message to worship Allah alone and avoid false deities. So The Shaykh says that this then is the deen that every single prophet, every single messenger came with. And when Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abd speaks about al-i'rad, he then goes on to explain al-i'rad away from this deen. What does it mean to make i'rad from the deen of Islam, which every prophet and messenger came with? The Shaykh says, first of all, al-i'rad, the Shaykh himself, rahimullah, explained it. He said, فَلَا يَعْمَلْ بِهِ لَا يَتَعَلَّمُهُ وَلَا يَعْمَلُ بِهِ. So he explained what it means, al-i'rad. It means that you do not learn it, nor do you act upon it. Right? So the Shaykh himself, Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abd himself explained the meaning of al-i'rad. لَا يَتَعَلَّمُهُ وَلَا يَعْمَلُ بِهِ. So he doesn't do this, nor does he do that. Right? So this is complete i'rad from the deen of Islam. Secondly, the Shaykh made istidlal. He used this ayah as a proof, the ayah in Surah Al-Sajdah. And the Shaykh says this ayah has a number of things. Number one, as-su'al al-istinkari. This is Allah Azza wa Jal. He's asking a question. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِرَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ. So this is like in kind of a rhetorical question. And it is intended to show rejection by way of it. A question by which rejection is intended. So, in other words, the meaning is, there is no one who is more unjust than the person who is described like this. He is reminded of the signs of the ayat of his Lord. The hujjah has been established upon him. And the warning from shirk has reached him. So the hujjah is established, and nadhara, the warning is established. And the two aspects of the hujjah, number one, to call to tawheed, to establish tawheed. Number two, to warn from shirk. Right? The messengers came with both these two elements in order to establish the hujjah. The hujjah is to clarify tawheed and invite a person to it. And then to refute shirk and warn the people against it. These two things, when they are brought together, this is the hujjah risaliyah. This is the proof that is brought by the messengers. And these are the two aspects of the hujjah, of the proof. And the Shaykh says this is because the asl, the foundation of the deen of Islam, is built upon these two things. Number one, the tawheed, ad-da'wa ila tawheed, to the tawheed of Allah, وإخلاص دين الله, and to purify the religion for Allah, and to call people to it, والموالاة فيه, to have loyalty with respect to it, وَالتَّكْفِيرُ مَنْ تَرَكَهُ, and to make takfir the one who abandoned it. That's one half. And the other half is النهي عن الشرك, to warn from shirk, and والمعادات فيه, وَالتَّكْفِيرُ مَنْ فَعَلَ ذَلك, and to have enmity on the basis of it, and to make takfir of the one who falls into it. That's what the asl of the deen of Islam is founded upon. So the Shaykh then goes on to speak about da'wah. And he says that any person who builds his da'wah, he claims that it is a da'wah to Allah, then we look at his da'wah. And if we see this ta'sis, if we see that he has founded his da'wah upon these two things, ad-da'wah ila tawheedillah, ila ibadatillah, and on the other hand, an-nahi an shirk, and so on and so forth. Right? If we see that his da'wah is founded upon these things, then the Shaykh says that he says then we are with this person, and this is because the rest of the religion, everything else in Islam, branches off from these two things. It is the asl of the deen of Islam. And as for everything else, al-mu'amalat, al-ahkam, al-hudud, and so on and so forth, all of these are from they branch off from tawheed. So we look at what is a person calling to, the one who is involved in da'wah, an individual or a group or a party. We see what is he calling to, what is he founded his da'wah upon. And so if we see that he's following the way of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the way of the prophets and messengers, And then the Shaykh says, فَمَرْحَبًا بِهِ وَأَهْلًا وَسَهْلًا. Then, welcome to that person, فَهُوَ مِنَّا وَنَحْنُ مِنْهُ. This person is from us, we are from him. And even if he has some deficiency in some issues and some affairs, in some issues, then this is something temporary. It comes and it goes. Person falls into a mistake, he corrects himself or he's corrected, and he takes it back. And this is something that comes, goes, and it's not a permanent issue. So, but as for the one who the asl of his da'wah is not founded upon this, then obviously the Shaykh is implying that we are not from that person. So when you look at all the different groups, you see what is the asl of the da'wah of every group. So you see the Ikhwan, al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin, what's the asl of their da'wah? The asl of their da'wah is to follow the way of the communists and the socialists and the Freemasons and secret societies and things like that, which is to snatch power, which is to topple the authorities and to reach power. That's the asl of their da'wah. And if they are able to use Tawheed to show, look, we're teaching the books of Ibn Taymiyyah, we're teaching the books of, this is just like they're using it to basically call to the main program, right? It's not the asl of what their da'wah is, rather it's simply a means to an end. The end, the goal, the foundation is to arrive at rule and powership, rule, power and authority, rulership and power, and so on and so forth. So this is the foundation of their da'wah, and that is what they are upon. Same with the Khawarij. The Khawarij, they are angry about financial matters, they are angry about economic matters, they are angry about political matters, and really they want the wealth to come to them. They are the ones who want to be in power, right? This is what they're really driven by. And then they make a pretense that it is to do with religion, right? Then they pretend to be, that this is, that they are zealous for the religion, when they are not. They are not. They are the Messenger he described their deeds as being in vain and false and not going beyond their throats, which means that it is not genuine. And that's why the Salaf, they used to cast doubt upon the Khawarij. Like Sufyan al-Thawri, I believe, yes, he went into a mosque and he saw one of the heads of the Khawarij. And this man was a person who used to believe that it's okay to rebel against the rulers. And he was praying, this man was praying, called Al-Hasan bin Salih al-Hayy, or bin Hayy. And he was praying, and Sufyan al-Thawri picked up his shoes and went and he said, A'udhu billahi min khushu'in nifaq. He said, I seek refuge in Allah from the hypocritical display of khushu'. He cast doubt upon the sincerity of this Khariji. And this is the nature of the Khawarij. They come out and they appear to be pious, righteous, and looking for justice and looking for this, whatever, and they want the Sharia and whatever else. This is the picture that you get. But this picture is false. They are really after authority, money, power, and so on and so forth. That's the Khawarij. And then you see other people like the Sufiya. What are they calling to really? What are they really calling to? They are calling to Wahdatul Adyan, Wahdatul Wujud. Right? This is the end result of where their doctrine it goes to. Right? As for the Tawheed of the messengers, it's not founded upon that. It's not founded upon that. And likewise, At-Tabligh and At-Tahrir, all these groups, you see what's the asl of their da'wah. You see that it does not agree with the asl of the da'wah of the prophets and messengers. So here the Shaykh then just generally he spoke about the issue of da'wah itself, and the Shaykh then goes on to say that if a person's da'wah is not built upon these two foundations, calling to Tawheed and warning from shirk and making al-wala wal-bara around that, then he says this man is only one of two people. Such a man is only one of two people. Number one, al-awwal dalun mudillun sahibu hawa. He's either a misguided person who misguides others, who's following his desires. He doesn't want to follow the Sunnah, and he's engrossed in his deviation, and he's trying to misguide the people away from what the Messenger, what he brought of truth and guidance. Or second, either he's one of these, or secondly he is jahilun yad'u ala ghayri basiratin. He is an ignoramus who's just calling to Allah upon jahl, without ilm. And the Shaykh says, whether he's this one or whether he's that one, whether he's dhalun mudil or jahilun, right? Both of these people are not really seeking ilm. This one, the one who's dhalun mudil, he's stuck in the path that he's chosen. He turns away from the Sunnah, so he can't be seeking ilm. And the jahil, well, he's jahil, so he can't be seeking ilm, right? So the Shaykh is saying that really these people who deviate away from the way of the messengers, right, either due to hawa or due to jahl, they have something of al-i'rad from the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. They are making something of al-i'rad from the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the Shaykh then goes on to say, so that's the first thing that we look at in this verse, right? Deviating away from the dawah of the messengers. The second thing that the ayah contains, the Shaykh says, أن هذا الذي أعرض عن آيات الله بعد الذكرى وقامت عليه الحجة مجرم. The one who turns away from this after the dhikr, after the remembrance, after the reminder, and after the hujjah has been established, he is a mujrim, according to the ruling of the verse. The verse has judged him to be a mujrim. And this is because Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, Inna min al-mujrimina muntaqimun. So in the ayah, it clearly describes such people as mujrimun. This person has followed the path of the criminals, and he's threatened with the same as what Allah threatened them, which is vengeance. If not in this life, then it will be in the hereafter. And this is because this person, he rejected and refused the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, and he followed his desires, he followed misguidance. And the Shaykh says that there are two types of people. The first person is a person who in general, he submits to Allah, submits to the messenger of Allah, but he just chooses to be ignorant. This is like a lot of Muslims, right? They are Muslim and they might do the obligation here and there, they might, so they're Muslim in general, but he basically doesn't want to learn anything, or he turns away from learning. And this person, the Shaykh says, فَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ فَاسِقٌ. This person is a zalim and a fasiq, such a person. And so he's referring to people who are generally Muslim. And then he says the second type is the one who refused to respond to the call of the messenger to begin with. This one is the kafir. ثاني قسم أبى الاستجابة لله ولرسوله فهذا كافر. The one who refuses to respond to Allah and His Messenger, فهذا كافر. فلم يؤمن برسالة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this person, he rejected the risala of the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. So they basically rejected to learn anything about this religion, and they are included in this ayah because the Quran and Islam is addressed to all of the creation. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَّةً لِلنَّاسِ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا. So this is a proof that the Quran is addressed to all people, no exceptions. And the hadith, well-known hadith, وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ لا يسمع بأحد من هذه الأمة يهودي ولا نصراني ثم يموت ولم يؤمن بالذي أرسلت به إلا أدخله الله النار. By him in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad sallam, no one hears of me from this ummah. This ummah now is ummatul da'wah. It's not, there's two types of ummah. One ummah to whom the messenger's call is addressed to, that's everybody. And then there's the ummah of istijabah, the ummah that respond to him, right? So here, min hadhihi al-ummah, referring to the ummah of the da'wah. So, Yahudiyun, wala Nasraniyun, any Jew or Christian, and then who dies and does not believe in me with what I sent, then Allah will enter him into the hellfire. So the Shaykh says all of the tawa'if, factions of kufr, whether they are kitabiyin or other than kitabiyin, the people of the book or other than people of the book, anyone among them who hears about this deen, he's about it, he's about Islam, and it is conveyed to him and it is spread, then it is, the Shaykh says, فَإِنَّهُ يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِمْ وُجُوبًا عَيْنِيًّا. It is an individual obligation now upon every person for him to find out and to learn about this deen. So now, in this time of ours, really with the spread of the means of communication and, Islam really entering every household because of what people hear, this is the means by which the Hujjah is kind of established, because people are hearing that there is Islam, it claims to have a book from Allah, it claims to be a prophet who's calling to what appears to be monotheism and whatever else, and so the spread of this and people coming to hear and know about this is something by which the Hujjah is established upon them, and as soon as they hear this, it is upon them to pursue. They ought to find out and verify what is going on here. Is this man truthful? Is this Quran from Allah? Is what Islam calls to, is it the truth? Is it justice? Right? They have to inquire and find out. And this is what happened with many of the Yahud and the Nasara. When Islam came, there were Jewish scholars like Abdullah from the scholars of the Jews, Abdullah bin Salam, and likewise from the Nasara, there were people who would come from Najran, from near Yemen, and they would debate and argue and discuss and try to find out what's going on. Right? So these people, they knew, they heard, and they came and they tried to find out. Right? This is the obligation upon every person who hears about Islam. So the Shaykh mentions about some of these affairs, people who accepted Islam, they became very good Muslims, and that's because when they studied Islam, they came to realize that this is the same what previous messengers called to, and it's the truth, it agrees with it, and so they accepted it. And there were some people, the Shaykh says, they are وَأَمَّا الْمُلَجِّلِجُونَ. This is a word which means the people who are mukhtalat, they are confused and not upright. Al-mu'anidun, the person who are stubborn opposers, they don't reject it, they don't accept it, instead they reject it, then they are the ones wahum kuffar. So the Shaykh goes on to explain, he mentions a hikayah, something that is related, and he says, أن حبرا من اليهود قال يا أبا القاسم جئت أسألك. One of the learned scholars of the Yahud came to the Messenger of Allah and he said, O Abu al-Qasim, I've come to ask you. فقال له رسول الله, the Messenger of Allah said to him, أينفعك شيء إن حدثتك. Now look at what the Messenger said to him. He said, if I was to narrate and tell you, is it going to benefit you? Look at what the Yahudi said. He said, Asma'u bi udhunayya. Now he's saying, I'm listening with my ears. And what he means, I'm listening with this, but I'm not accepting with this. That's what he means to say. So, وَلِهَذَا كَانُوا يَقُولُونَ سَمِعْنَا وَعَصَيْنَا. That's what the Yahudi used to say. We hear, but we don't obey. So, Shaykh says, that this is the way of those people who turn away kulliyan. They're just completely not interested and they turn away. The hujjah has been established upon them. But as for then there's another group which can fall into this, and they can be from among the Muslims. The Shaykh says, for example, anyone who makes juhud of something that is known to be from the religion by necessity, right? So he rejects a clear obligation or a clear prohibition. So someone comes and he says, well, I don't believe the prayer is wajib, or I don't believe that alcohol is haram, right? So now he's making jahd. He's making, after having knowledge, he's making juhud, right? Willfully, knowingly, out of choice. So when we find this person among the Muslims, and he makes juhud in this manner, and then the conditions, the shurut are established and the mawani to takfir are verified, this person, فَهَذَا مُعْرِض كَافِرْ ارْتَدَّ عَنْ دِينِ اللَّهِ. That's what the Shaykh says. This person now, he's made i'rad from the deen of Allah by way of this action. Right? So if we think about this, the Shaykh really has described three groups. Right? The first group are those who turn away kulliyan from Islam. They hear about it and they listen and they refuse it and reject it. Right? So these are the kuffar disbelievers. Then you have among the Muslims. Among the Muslims is one group. In general they are Muslims and they're just ignorant and they choose to be ignorant. They don't want to learn like the details of the deen, but they accept Islam. Right? This is many of the sinful Muslims. So these people are zalimun, fasiqun. They are not disbelievers. Right? And then the third group is a person who is upon Islam and then he comes and he rejects an obligation, or he rejects something that is known to be from Islam bil-durura, by necessity, like a clear-cut obligation from the pillars, for example, or a clear-cut prohibition from the major prohibitions, like for example the prohibition of marrying a mahram, right, or the prohibition of riba, or the prohibition of khamar. All of these are well-known, open, manifest affairs to everybody. So he comes and he makes jahd. He says, I don't believe it's obligatory. I don't believe it's prohibited. Or he says about an obligation, I don't believe it's an obligation. This person now, after the shurut are established and the mawani', any barriers to his takfir are removed, right? So he's not ignorant, he's not making a faulty interpretation, he's not intoxicated when he says this, he knows what he's saying, what he's doing, right? This person then, as the Shaykh says, فَهَذَا مُعْرِض كَافِرْ ارْتَدَّ عَنْ دِينِ اللَّهِ. So, this is where the Shaykh, coming to an end of what he explains, and we can bring it to an end here, and he finishes by saying that this istihlal, when a person tries to make something halal which is actually haram, it can be done in two ways. Number one, he explicitly says it with his mouth, right? At-tasrih bil-qawl. So he says alcohol is not haram, he's now made alcohol halal, right? Here he's clearly stated it with his tongue, and then we can judge him by way of that after the shurut and the mawani', the issue of the barriers to takfir. Or secondly, it might be something that's amrun batin. It's in his, in himself. It's between him or bain Allah, between him and Allah. We don't know it, right? But this person is a munafiq. As it relates to Allah's knowledge of him, this person is a munafiq, because inwardly he's secretly believing that alcohol is not haram, or the prayer is not wajib, or it's prohibited to marry someone who is from the maharim, right? He inwardly believes these things. Outwardly he doesn't say it. So as it relates to us, he's a Muslim to us in the ahkam of the dunya, ahkam of dunya, and in the ahkam of the akhirah, as it relates to Allah's knowledge, as it relates to the ruling as it is with Allah, who is all-knowing, then this person is a munafiq, kafirun billah. Right? So, obviously, but he doesn't express what he is believing. So we have no way of knowing that. And so therefore we cannot judge a person with anything. But this person is from the munafiqeen, is like haluhu kahali Abdullah bin Abi ibn Salul. His situation is like the hypocrites in Medina. And those are the people whom Allah will, as he says, innal munafiqina fi ad-darki al-asfali min an-nar. Indeed, the hypocrites are in the lowest depth of the hellfire. This brings us to an end of this Naqd. It's almost coming to an end of our time, 5 o'clock, so we'll stop at this point. And inshallah, this brings us to the end of the 10 Nawaqid. There is some text which is left at the end. Shaykh basically mentions that there's no difference between all of these Nawaqid. We can quickly finish off, inshallah ta'ala, just to make sure that we complete. So we can complete the whole treatise before Ramadan. So I think this will be the last lesson now. Next week I won't be here, and the week after I won't be here as well. So the Shaykh at the end, he says, وَلَا فَرْقَ فِي جَمِيعِ هَذِهِ النَّوَاقِدِ بَيْنَ الْحَازِلِ وَالْجَادِ وَالْخَائِفِ إِلَّا الْمُقْرَحِ. So the Shaykh now is saying that all of these 10 Nawaqid, there's no difference between the one who does so, who falls into these, out of jest, or on purpose, or out of fear, the only exception is the one who is compelled, al-mukrah. Right? The only exception is the one who is compelled. And to explain, there's a lot of text, and it might take a bit too long. So what we'll do is to quickly give an example to illustrate, right, to the three things that Shaykh Muhammad bin Abd has mentioned. Let's imagine, and I think I gave this example before as well, but this example will illustrate the points here. Let's take the example of al-istihza, mockery and belittlement of the deen of Islam. So let's say there is a Muslim, and this Muslim is going to be involved in acting in a play. Right? He's going to be acting in a play, in a theatre, on the stage or on a play. And as part of this acting, this Muslim is requested as part of the acting to make fun of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? To make fun of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or to belittle the Quran in some way. Right? A copy of the Quran and to belittle it in some way. Right? This is part of the acting that he has to do. Right? So now, there are 3 or 4 situations. We have to distinguish between the qasd and the ba'ith. The ba'ith. A ba'ith is a motive. Why are you doing what you are doing? Qasd is to deliberately choose the action. Do you understand? Let me explain to you the difference. Imagine I walk into a masjid and there's a mushaf on the floor. Right? Somebody's left a mushaf on the floor, and I walk into a masjid, and as I walk into the masjid, my foot kicks the mushaf. Right? Did I have qasd for that action? Yes or no? No. I didn't have qasd for the action. Right? Here the qasd is not established. Right? But let's say there's some person, na'udhu billah, and there's a mushaf. When he comes, he sees the mushaf, he knows it's a mushaf, and he kicks it. This now is qasd. Right? The qasd is established. Qasd is different from the ba'ith. The ba'ith is the motive. The motive, what's the motive? Right? So let's say that person who kicked the Quran, there could be a few different reasons what motivate him to do that. Right? It could be, first of all, the ba'ith could be that let's say someone paid him some money to do it. Right? I'll give you £100. Here now the ba'ith is money. Right? That's money now. Or it could be, the ba'ith could be something different. It could be that he's scared of some people, right? And he wants to show them, or he, out of fear of them, he kicks the Quran. Here now the ba'ith, the motive behind it is because of fear. Right? So these 2 examples should show the difference between qasd for the action and ba'ith. Can you see the difference between the 2? Right? It's important to understand the difference between the 2. Right? What we are looking for is whether a person does it knowingly. Yeah? As long as he does it knowingly, what the ba'ith is makes no difference. Do you understand? Right? The person who kicked the Quran makes no difference. Whether he did it for money, whether he did it out of fear out of some people, or whether he did it just as a joke. All of this is irrelevant. This person is a kafir, irrespective of what the motive was. Right? What was the reason for him doing it? Whether for money, whether out of fear of people, whether just he did it just as a joke. He didn't really mean it. It wasn't serious. He just did it as a joke, right? So he says, ولا فرق في جميع هذه النواقد بين الحازل, the one who's just joking around, والجاد, the one who's serious, the one who does it on purpose and serious, والخائف, or the person who does it out of fear. إلا المكره, except, the only exception is what? The one who is compelled. So now imagine someone comes and he puts a gun to the head of this man. He puts a gun now to his head. He says, kick this Quran. Right? When that man kicks the Quran, did he have qasd for the Quran? He did, didn't he? The qasd now is established. He knows what he's doing and he's going to kick the Quran. But he is mukrah. He is now compelled, even though the qasd is present. He willingly and knowingly is doing that action. Right? So look at how the only exception is this al-ikrah, is the issue of being compelled. If there is no compulsion, then all of those reasons or motives, it makes no difference. Whether you did it for money, whether you were scared of certain people, whether you did it to please certain people, whether you did it just as a joke and you weren't even being serious. As long as you intended the act and you did the act and you had knowledge that this is kufr, then you become a kafir. Right? So this applies to all of these nawaqid. It applies to all of these nawaqid. If you fall into one of these nawaqid out of qasd, out of ilm and qasd, knowing that it is kufr, and you willfully and deliberately choose that action, then this now is kufr. Right? As for the motive, irrelevant. Do you understand? The motive is irrelevant. So this is what the Shaykh explains. It's very important to understand that point. And so let me just say, Shaykh Muhammad says, أنه لا فرق بين الواقعين فيها فهم من وقع فيها على سبيل الحزل أو الجد أو خوف الناس فكله راكب ناقدا من نواقض الإسلام يخرجه إلى الكفر. أنه لا يستثنى من الواقعين فيها إلا المكره، والمقصود بالمكره هو من لا يستطيع التخلص من مكرهه. And then he gives an example. He says the only exception is the one who's compelled. And what does it mean compelled? The one compelled means that the one who's got no escape from the one who's compelling him. So he says, by way of example, if a kafir came to a Muslim and prevented him from the salah and put a sword to his head, and he said, do not pray in the night or the day, and he stopped him from moving at all, you know, he made him stand or to sit and not move at all, and threatened him with death, then here this person is ma'zur. This person is excused. And another example the Shaykh gives of a person brought a sword to a head of a Muslim and said, revile your Prophet, abuse him, make fun of him, otherwise we're going to kill you with the sword. هذا معذور أيضا. This person is also excused. لكن بشرط ماذا أن يكون قلبه مطمئنا بالإيمان. However, there's a condition that this person, when he's saying these things, his heart has to be firm in iman. Inwardly, his heart is firm in iman. إيمانه ثابت. وإنما أجابهم بلسانه فقط. He only responded with his tongue only and nothing else. So this is the meaning of the ayah. إلا من أكره وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان. So the one who falls into this, then obviously this person is excused. So we can finish here inshallah ta'ala as long as this point is understood. And this brings us to an end of the statement of Shaykh Islam Muhammad bin Abd وكلها من أعظم ما يكون خطرا وأكثر ما يكون وقوعا فينبغي للمسلم أن يحذرها ويخاف منها على نفسه. He said all of these are from the greatest affairs. These 10 are from the greatest affairs which are very dangerous, and they are the most often which occur amongst the people. So it is upon a Muslim to beware of them and to fear them upon himself. نعوذ بالله من موجبات غضبه وعليم عقابه وصلى الله على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We seek refuge in Allah from those things which bring upon His anger and from the severity of His punishment, and may Allah send salutations and make good mention of the best of His creation, Muhammad ﷺ, and upon his family and upon all of his companions. And that's where the treatise ends, and we can round off with that, inshallah ta'ala, the end of this treatise.
Is that a question, you mentioned about this issue of